Welcome to the Locked On Pirates and Locked On Giants podcast today, everybody. It is Friday, August 12th. My name is Ethan Smith, your host who does the most at the Locked On Pirates podcast. To my right is Ben Kaspick of the Locked On Giants podcast, and we are here to preview a very important weekend series for the San Francisco Giants. Not as important for the Pittsburgh Pirates in terms of the win-loss column, in terms of player development, always important. So we're going to preview that today, as well as talking about how the Pirates could potentially be in the position the Giants are in record-wise and potentially division-wise next year, depending on what happens in the 2022-2023 offseason. But for starters, Ben, how are things over there in the Bay? I know Pittsburgh fans don't get to pay attention too much to what goes on out west unless we're playing you guys. So how have things fared for the Giants as of late?
Well, it has overall been a disappointing season coming off 107 wins, and they actually started off pretty well, 13 and 5, and then for the longest time they were kind of treading water and not gaining any ground on that, but maybe a little bit of losing ground on that. But then starting in early July, they just had this awful stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Then they kind of turned it around right before the All-Star break, and then coming out of the All-Star break, they lost seven straight. They got swept by the Dodgers in for 4 games. They got swept by the Arizona Diamondbacks. And then I think they won a series and then they lost a series, won a series and then lost a series. So it's just been overall bad. And they've fallen pretty much out of playoff contention. They're on the cusp of being at a point where it's just extremely unlikely. They're 7.5 back, and it's not just Pittsburgh. They have many below 500 teams that they're playing coming up. And so this is a critically important stretch if the Giants want to have any kind of chance of getting back in the race.
Yeah, and of course these teams have met already this season with the Giants winning 2 out of 3, but it's kind of starting to sound like it's make or break time in terms of the Giants need to sweep this series. It's starting to sound like that, and of course the standings speak to it. Just because we're both NL hosts, I'm sure we can bring this up that I think it's pretty clear cut who your playoff teams are going to be for at least, I'd say, 5 of the 6 spots. The Mets are in the playoffs. I mean, they're 77 or 73 and 39. They're going to be there. The Cardinals 61 and 50 with the Brewers 60 and 50. Both of those teams probably make it, I would say. Just depends on who wins and who's a wild card. The Dodgers are a shoe in. I'd say the Padres are even a shoe in. So then it's really just coming down to you guys and whatever team in the NL Central doesn't win the division. And as far as I checked, you play the Pirates, of course, in the NL Central. But then after this, you do play the Brewers in a weird doubleheader game in September. You also play the Cubs still. You still play the Braves, and most of your games are against the NL West. So now you guys, I feel like the Giants and I think the Pirates were stuck in this rut in 2019, is you were trying to create ground on other teams like the Brewers and the Phillies and the Braves, but you were stuck playing all of your divisional opponents who you couldn't really catch up to now. So how do you feel about that? I mean, you're playing all of your rivals and you do have a chance to kind of break the gap, but how much does breaking that gap really matter when you're not really trying to break the gap with those teams anymore? You're worried about the teams outside of your division.
It's a good question. The one thing I'll say is that the Padres did become that third wild card team. So they became like a team directly that the Giants have been chasing, and they just went to San Diego, and so we viewed that as a golden opportunity to make up ground on them. But like when you look at the moves that they just made at the trade deadline, and they go out and get not just Juan Soto, but Josh Bell and Brandon Drury and Josh Hader, it's like I agree with you. At the end of the day, they're probably going to gain some separation and not so much be the team that you're chasing. And it might come down to some of these other teams like the Cardinals, maybe the Brewers, Phillies. You're not catching the Braves and you're not catching the Dodgers. And so I don't know. Part of me is like you're right. Part of me they have a couple more opportunities against the Padres. I think two more series, and so in theory, I think if you could sweep both of them, you'd probably put yourself in a decent position to possibly sweep both of them and play good baseball against everybody else. But I mean, we're talking about kind of very unlikely scenarios, and uh, when you're chasing teams that are ahead of you and in playoff position, you're chasing good teams, and so like the idea that you need to sweep them is always a steep hill to climb. But I don't know. My philosophy is kind of just take care of your own business. At the end of the day, it takes a certain number of wins to get to the playoffs, and it's probably going to take around 90, which is kind of steep given that there's an extra spot this year. You would think in some years past, maybe mid 80s might have got you in. I haven't like seen the research or numbers, whatever, on, we added an extra team to the playoffs, what that win total would have had to be in years past, but I would say it normally around 86 maybe wins, and I think this year it's going to be a little more than that, which is unfortunate for the Giants. But if say it was 88, which is not a very great win total, the Giants would have to go 34-17 the rest of the way. So it's going to be tough no matter what. They just have to. That's why this stretch is so important, because in order to go 34-17, it would help to go like 10-2 or something in this stretch of 12 games coming up, all against sub 500 teams.
Yeah, and if for Pirates listeners, uh, I try to back this team up on a lot of things, but the Giants do have a very solid pitching staff for even the position that they're in right now. And the Pirates, of course, will be facing that solid pitching staff this entire series. So we'll get into that more later. But what Ben is referencing about the upcoming schedule for the Giants is the weekend series that we're talking about now with the Pirates and the Giants. Then the Diamondbacks, who the Pirates just finished up a series with, the Rockies, the Tigers, and then you brought up sub 500 teams. The Twin series isn't exactly like world breaking. I mean,
Right.
if the Giants were in the AL Central, they're right in the playoff conversation, like even now. And then,
Right.
of course, the Padres. So, again, I agree with you 100%. As a Giants fan right now, you're looking at that stretch of games saying we need to win all of those series at minimum. Like, okay, if you don't get a sweep here and there or whatever, but I think you guys at this point need at least one or two sweeps in there, and then that's including winning everything else. So who knows? The Pirates might make it hard on them. They might not. You'd probably enjoy this. They beat up on Madison Bumgarner on Wednesday night, which kind of felt good to my core because I was like, wow, why couldn't they do this in 2015 or 2014? When Madison Bumgarner literally ripped my heart out of my chest and said, yeah, you're not doing anything, pal. The Pirates are not either. Of course, the Giants would go on to win the World Series that year. But we're going to get more into this series here in just a moment. But I want to let you guys know about Liver Health Formula. Did you know the key to sustainable weight loss is through your liver? Somebody should probably tell Daniel Vogelbach that, but what do I know? He's hitting the baseball well. The liver is the body's metabolic furnace. It's responsible for flushing out harmful toxins, igniting your fat burning metabolism. But thanks to modern diets rich in unhealthy processed foods and constant exposure to thousands of man-made and environmental toxins, most of us have overworked livers. But now it's easy to rejuvenate your liver health and reignite your metabolism thanks to Liver Health Formula by Pure Health Research. Liver Health Formula contains 8 liver-boosting supernutrients like turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract, all of which work together to wake up a sluggish liver and turn it into a toxin flushing and fat burning machine. No more bloated belly, no more uncomfortable digestion, no more feeling tired and low on energy all the time. And best of all, Liver Health Formula makes it easier to maintain a healthy body weight long term. As a listener of the Locked On Pirates or Locked On Giants podcast, you could try Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit is a safe and all-natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. So go to getliverhelp.com/lockedonmlb to learn more about Liver Health Formula and claim your free bottle of Curb Fit with that order as well. So go to getliverhelp.com/lockedonmlb. So now we talked about the Giants situation. Let's talk about this series in a nutshell. The Pirates, of course, coming off of a series against the Diamondbacks where they lost 3 out of 4. Of course, the game on Thursday, the Pirates had everything they needed to win the game. They had all the ingredients. They went into the kitchen and just smacked everything on on the table and it all went flying around. The product of a 7-run seventh inning. I'm here to tell you, Ben, they can't do that against San Francisco. One, because if we're going to compare San Francisco and Arizona here for a second, San Francisco is a better baseball team in most facets, I would say. Your pitching staff is miles better. Your offense, to me, is a lot better. And you can't make stupid mistakes like this. So going into the series, as I mentioned before, Bryce Wilson versus Carlos Rodon, I think you give the nod to Rodon. You guys get to face Cy Young candidate undecided on Saturday. It is undecided on who the Pirates will be pitching against Logan Webb, who has been a Webb gem lately. And Alex Wood will face Zach Thompson. So you guys have the advantage pitching, which probably also means based off of how poor the Pirates offense has been, you probably have the advantage offensively. But what are some things the Giants have done to put themselves in the position they're in now that they can avoid against the Pirates to what you say is a necessity to sweep or win a series?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that has been a real problem all season long is the defense. They are not a good defensive team, and it's often, I mean, it's anything you can imagine defensively, like kicking the ball around, making bad throws, throwing to the wrong base, not hitting the cutoff man, overthrowing the cutoff man, just boneheaded stuff that's more just like physical errors, mental errors, you name it. That has been a problem all season long for the Giants. And in addition to that, the bullpen. And last time these two teams faced, I recall, I don't remember the specifics of how the game went, but I think the Giants had a lead, and then the bullpen, Jack Zawinski hit 3 home runs, and Tyler Rogers served up the walk-off to him, and Tyler Rogers just served up a walk-off home run in their last game, or actually 2 games ago. And so the bullpen has been a problem. Even though they led the major leagues in ERA last season, they're, I think, 5th worst this season. And by pretty much any metric you look at defensively, they've been, if not the worst, one of the bottom 2 or 3 defensive teams in the game. And it crops up almost every day. And so if the Pirates are going to have a shot, I mean, it could go any number of ways, but I would venture to guess some kind of defensive play, because just consistently they're having to get 4 or 5 outs in some innings, and it just, like, double plays that aren't turned. It's been bad, and it's hurt them a ton. Like, many wins have been lost, if that makes any. Many wins have been lost with the defense.
Ben Kaspick giving elite baseball analysis there. Many wins have been lost. I like it. Well, you brought up the last series, and I enjoy that you brought up the last series. 2 out of 3 for the Giants. Your bullpen didn't look that shaky in that series as a whole, because in the first game, 2-0, Carlos Rodon, Camilo Duvall. Enough said. Second game, 7-5. Camilo Duvall comes in again with the save. Alex Wood gets the win in that one. And then, of course, you bring up the Tyler Rogers, Jack Sawinski 3 home run game where the Giants only had 4 hits. I could see the series looking a lot like that again. But as I mentioned to you earlier, Jack Sawinski is not on the Pirates roster at the moment. He had a rough string of things for about a month there where he was striking out a ton, was not hitting home runs at the volume that he was like he did against the Giants. And he is not on the team. And David Bednar is also not on the team at the moment with a 15-day IL stint with back soreness. So that's kind of created the Pirates' own version of bullpen issues where you have guys that are looking good, like a Colin Holderman, like a Yuri De Los Santos, a Will Crow, a Dwayne Underwood Jr., a Johan Ramirez, just random guys that have popped up and stuff like that, but some staple names in that bullpen. But one of the things the Pirates continuously keep doing that irritates the crap out of me, Ben, is they pitch these relievers too long. And some people would say, well, they're major league relief pitchers. They could pitch more than 1 inning. Yeah, it's all fine and dandy when they pitch more than 1 inning and they do it well. But when they don't, things spiral out of control like they did in that final game against Arizona. I mean, you saw they finally took the guy out. I believe it was Yuri De Los Santos that they had in there that was really struggling there. Yeah, it was 4 earned runs, 3 walks. You can't leave a guy in after he's allowing those kind of statistics. And it sounds like the Giants have the same issue with the bullpen. Now, I'm sure your bullpen is managed a ton better than ours, because the management of our bullpen has been absolutely catastrophic this year, which is why David Bednar is on the shelf in the first place. But could this series really come down to which incompetent bullpen suddenly becomes competent?
Totally. And the Giants, I mean, you mentioned just kind of random guys pop up and become good. That's kind of the story of bullpens, which is what's so frustrating about them. Like I said, they led the majors. They led the majors in ERA last year, and now they're 26th. They're like 25th, 26th, and it's a lot of the same guys. But there are a couple of guys who have been good, and you mentioned Camilo Duvall. Like, he's good, and so if he comes in the game, if you can get, that's the formula, right? Is like if your starter can give you 6, even 7 innings, and you've got a 4-run lead, you can survive if like whoever comes in the 7th and 8th gives up a run combined or 2, and then you go to your lights out closer, and you could still win a game that way. But the problem is if you're behind by a run or if it's tied and it's like your starter had to work kind of hard and you've got to go to like 3, 4, 5 different relievers in the game, somebody's going to probably mess it up. And it sounds like maybe on both teams. So yeah, it could absolutely come down to which bullpen performs better, because it seems like neither has been great. And Bednar being out, I didn't even realize that's a big deal because he's really good. So not
Yeah.
that I root for an injury, but I'll take it as a
Yeah,
Giants
you
fan.
will not have to see him. And a lot of teams have not had to see him lately, obviously. And if it were up to me, I love David Bednar. He was our all star this year. He's a top 5, top 10 closer in baseball. Just shut the guy down. There's not really a need for an elite closer on a team that's 40, what was it, 45 and 67. I would rather have him healthy going into the 2023 spring training period. I would rather him be healthy for that entire year, because, as we'll get into in the final part of our segment, is I think what the Giants' position is now is a lot of what the Pirates could be in heading into next year with the influx of young talent that they have, the holes on the roster that could be easily filled with free agency signings. I'm talking to you, Ben Charrington. It's going to be interesting. But for your sake, I actually do think, just with the way that this team is playing, the Pirates, that is, I do think this is a sweep for San Francisco. From recent memory, I don't think we ever play that well at Oracle Park. The Giants, I'm pretty sure, and you could probably vouch for this, are probably a much better team in Oracle Park than they are on the road. It's just a beautiful ballpark. I think PNC and Oracle are definitely 2 top 5 ballparks in baseball. But with this being in San Francisco, I do think the Giants sweep. I think Alex Wood, Carlos Rodon, and wait,
Webb.
yeah, Logan Webb. Yeah, there we go. I was like, wait, who's the third one? I think they pitch their lights out. I think they do a very good job at containing a subpar Pirates offense. And yeah, Pirates Nation, I'm predicting us to get swept in this series.
Yeah, and you and I, we've done these a few times, and we've never predicted a sweep. I don't think. I think every time we've probably said 2 out of 3 for the Giants, and I think we've been right.
Yep.
Maybe every time, certainly last time, but this is the one time where I'm kind of with you because Rodon and Webb, and just the urgency the Giants are going to have to play with. And Alex Wood was great in his last start and has the potential to be really good. The ERA has kind of not matched up with the peripherals, so he's kind of underperformed overall on the season, but he was fantastic against a really good Padres lineup in his last start. And so I'm with you. It's hard to predict a sweep because it's just hard to sweep a major league team, but Giants need it, and I think more than any other time we've talked, I think that it is a possibility.
Oh, yeah. And before we get into why I think the Pirates and the Giants could be very comparable in terms of what the Pirates could look like next year, I want to let you guys know about Blue Nile. Of course, at Blue Nile, you can celebrate all of life's special moments, from creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams to gifting a classic and timeless jewelry piece, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. Whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, Find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Of course, Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind. Like the Giants, they have some World Series rings, and the Pirates are definitely going to be looking for one more recently than 1979. So maybe they should go to Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So shop stress free and find your forever piece and go to BlueNile.com today. Also, if you want to bet on the giant sweep that me and Ben predicted, make sure you go to betonline.net. It is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Of course, you can find odds for every single league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, UFC, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. So head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. And BetOnline is where the game starts. So, from an outside perspective, the Pirates are a crappy team. They are. I know this. I think everybody said this. But like most crappy teams, they do have a good farm system. And next year, if there was the thought of the youth movement this year was crazy, buckle up, kiddos. It's going to be fun. You're talking about Leover Piguero, Nick Gonzalez, Henry Davis, Mason Martin, Quinn Priester. The list goes on and on and on and on of all the guys that could make debuts next year. I think that influx of yet another group of prospects on top of potentially making some minor free agency signings, like bringing in a left-handed pitcher, which they've done the last 2 years with Tyler Anderson and Jose Quintana, bringing in another good first baseman option, maybe another corner outfield option. Is it unreasonable of me, Ben, to think that the Pirates could potentially be in the spot that the Giants are in right now, where they're just outside, but more reasonably will probably not be in the postseason, but they at least have that chance to get there if they take it and run with it?
No, I don't think it's unreasonable. And we talked before we started recording about look at the Baltimore Orioles this season and look at some other teams around the league. And honestly, when you said it, it reminded me of how I felt about the Giants in 2020. And the Giants, remember, they were bad kind of recently, like really bad. They lost 98 games in 2017. They lost around 90 games in 2018. And in 2019, they were below 500 again, so they were bad. And yet, I felt like they started to have some pieces. They started to turn things around a little bit. It was a little different because Giants are like still waiting for some young prospects to show up and start being real impact players. And I think the Pirates have that now more so than the Giants have had even now, even though they've had many years of trying to get these guys to get closer to the majors. But absolutely, I mean, I think every team with a good farm system, if you start letting them show up, and it just takes one or two guys taking a superstar turn, and you've got youth, and you've got just kind of a team that is hopeful and likes playing, good chemistry with each other. You see it happen all the time, and I think that there's no reason the Pirates, they seem to be on that trajectory to me from the outside, and I hope so because it's a good fan base, and it was fun when watching that team when they were good.
Yeah, it was really fun watching Madison Bumgarner dominate us in 2014, wasn't it,
Hey,
Ben? It was probably great.
yeah, it was scary going into that stadium with the history of I think it was the year before with the Cueto and
Yep.
the blackout and all that. Pirates got uh, a rough go of it with the wild card game. It just wasn't fair. They were really good. That one year they won, 98 games, 97 games or whatever.
Second best record in baseball. Yep.
And had to play a one-game playoff. It's just not fair.
Yeah.
And so I was podcasting at the time and just talked about how ridiculous that was, and it wasn't just me, of course, but I mean, these days that wouldn't have happened. You would have got a 3-game series, so they'll get their revenge at some point. They'll get
Yeah,
their revenge.
and when I am saying, like, from an outside perspective, I ask people's opinion on this. I'm not saying I'm expecting the Pirates to be like hoisting one of these. Like, I'm not saying they're going to hoist a Super Bowl championship for Pittsburgh or a World Series for Pittsburgh until I'd say at least 2024. Then we could start having that conversation where it's like, okay, like Henry Davis is here, Nick Gonzalez is here, Piguero is here, your whole starting rotation of prospects is here. Now it's time to add. Like now we're back into the Kutch, Marte, Polanco, Neil Walker, Josh Harrison deal. I'm saying, like the Giants right now, you're not a bad team. You're not exactly a good team, but with the right things happening for you, you could find yourself slip into the playoffs. And I think that's a lot of what Baltimore has done this year is they're not necessarily a good team on paper, but they've had so much go right for them this year in terms of good bounces and winning those close ball games, which if you didn't know, the Pirates are top 5 in baseball and playing 1 or 2 run baseball games and have literally like the 29th worst record in those games. You go into next year and you turn that around. I mean, you're talking about a team again that's 45 and 67. Add 10 wins to that, you're a contending team for a playoff spot at 55 and 57 at this point, I think, still. Because, I mean, again, it might not seem like it this year because there's so many good teams in the National League, like the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres, all those teams. I'm here to tell you, I don't think Milwaukee is going to be as good next year as they are this year. I don't think St. Louis is going to be as good next year as they are this year. The Reds and the Cubs, who played in the Field of Dreams game last night, also are not getting any better. They sold, except the Cubs for whatever reason they had, not giving away Contreras and Ian Happ after they hugged it out and said their goodbyes. It's there for the Pirates to take, I think, at some point. The Brewers are going to continue to get worse because they don't have the lineup at all to me to compete with these playoff teams. The Cardinals still have Arenado and Goldschmidt, and they're a factory of creating really good players. But at that point, if you're telling me the Pirates are eventually going to step into the limelight and only have to worry about one team, they're in a much better position to win the division than a lot of other teams across baseball. And it's even more arguable to say the Pirates might have a better record next year because of the balanced schedule. I wonder how that affects the Giants next year, too, not having to play the Dodgers and the Padres 19 freaking times. Like,
It'll
it's going to
help.
be interesting.
It's brutal. I'm so in favor of more balancing the schedule. Yeah, I mean the Dodgers are. I mean the Pirates have swept them this year, and not just once, but did you beat them in both series?
I believe we did. I actually do not remember.
There was a sweep in LA, and that was super impressive. And I remember watching one of those games, and Bednar, I think a 2-inning save. Speaking of the multi-inning,
Yeah, we did win the first series in Pittsburgh because we won 5-1, 5-3, and then that middle game where they beat the crap out of us 11-1, and then we went to LA and swept them because that was the Rodolfo Castro no doubt home run at Dodger Stadium. And then I always love to throw it out there. We also beat the Yankees twice out of 3 games too, so we're like 7-2 against the Yankees and the Dodgers.
Go figure. Baseball is a weird game.
Very weird.
Every year there's teams that kind of pop up, especially, I mean, it wouldn't be a fluke. I think if the Pirates show some fight and play like more of a 500 team, it's going to be because some of these prospects are making an impact. And, you know, you've got some young talent already. And then I think of the Orioles this year, one of their strengths is their bullpen. And I think you've got some bullpen pieces already. So I could definitely see it happening.
Oh, yeah. So me and Ben, as a recap, predicting a sweep for the San Francisco Giants here. It's time to bring out the tanks in Pittsburgh. Tanking again, baby. It's 2022. It's tank season. We're all here.
Dodgers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, we beat the Dodgers. We helped out the NL West. So the Giants are now, hopefully for Ben's sake, going to sweep the Pirates. Hopefully for my sake, the Pirates maybe surprise me. Most of the time, my predictions are wrong, but we'll see. The way this team is playing right now offensively, I have no faith. Guys, make sure you go check out Ben over at Locked On Giants. He does a phenomenal job and has all the baseballs behind him. So clearly he knows what he's talking about. Still has the NL West champ sign up too, I see. No reason to take it down. It still reigns
Not
true
yet.
at the current moment. I also keep joking with our channel manager, Jeff Carr, to take down the Luis Castillo sticker that he has behind him every episode, but he's holding on to it. Just like I hold on to my Josh Harrison jersey back there, even though he's played for like 5 other teams. But my name is Ethan Smith of the Locked On Pirates podcast. That has been Kaspick of the Locked On Giants podcast. Enjoy this weekend series. Ben, of course, will be back Monday, as I will be back Monday on our respective shows. Make sure you go check out Locked On MLB as well with Paul Francis Sullivan, but please call him Sully. Notable Giants fan, by the way. So for all of you Giants folk, if you haven't checked that out, go check that out now. Thank you so much and have a blessed weekend and enjoy the baseball.